up, guys? It's Blackberries back with another video. Last time in this series we talked about ghosts, creatures who live behind the veil. This time we're going to be talking about creatures who don't give a frick about the veil. You guessed it, vampires, baby. I am going to be recreating Carmilla from Black Sunday, and I'm going to be talking about all different kinds of vampires. Let's get into the video. So in original lesbian vampire stories, like La Fanu's Carmilla, feminine power is a source of societal anxiety, and female sexuality itself is scary. Usually these relationships were between a more powerful upper class woman and then a lower class, less powerful woman. And this might have been to critique abusive relationship dynamics, where the victim will feel trapped because they don't really have any other options. But anxiety is sparked in the victim because the pleasure they feel where they think that they shouldn't. Courting is what a man does to a woman, damn it! So there's a sense of shame for these vampire victims when a woman is being romantic or sexual because the beliefs of the time are being broken. The assault turns from mental to physical through the bite, but it's shown as this pleasurable thing. And only when the vampire is slayed is order restored. Usually it's by a group of men, and usually they're staking her, which I don't know about you, but it sounds like symbolic for something else. A lot of male vampires have been used to reinforce gender stereotypes. Usually it's a young girl who is a damsel in distress, and then this vampire saves her from this scary new world that he brought her into, by the way. He's probably a good vegetarian vampire who only eats animals, and these vampires are usually considered or called sheep's and wolves' clothing. She also might be torn between two vampires, the good or the bad vampire. And the bad vampire will start out bad and really murderous, and then he'll redeem himself through her love and even end up sacrificing himself for her. Basically, a young girl finds herself through her vampire boyfriend, and it tries to solve the problem of women finding their identity in marriage, but usually they only get a baby or vampirism, which they kind of have to contain. In these portrayals, there might be Amazonian vampires, but they usually only serve as a bad example. They're seen as really uncivilized for, women supporting women or living among only women. And they're at the margins of the story rather than being an actual focus of it. Giving birth is especially gruesome when vampires are involved. The mother's life is almost always in danger. She might have to be turned into a vampire in order to save her life. And it not only serves as the birth of a child, but the rebirth of the mother in her supernatural state. Birth is also thought to be the first moment of the abject in our lives and in the stories. It's the moment when the baby is separated from its mother through the violent act of birth. In another story, an already vampire has been using her sweet vampire scent to lure in shepherd boys and gypsy lads. Roses are used to symbolize the forbidden pleasures of her sexuality, and after a group of men use her after they kill her, a single rose is plucked from between her thighs. The imagery is thought to show a loss of innocence or virginity through like literal deflowering, and the presence of blood is symbolic of that too. She also dies giving birth to a vampire, but here meaning that a man licked her vampire blood-ridden wounds and will soon turn into a vampire. Even though she fed strictly on men in a misguided feminist sort of way, she was never allowed to function as a woman. She was always exiled. So the moment that her blood flows out and not in, because she's a vampire, she rejoins women and also just humans in general. Unlike other female vampires who are over-sexualized, recent Iranian American vampires are used to play on the stereotype that Muslim women are modest and passive, and it actually helps her stay under the radar, basically. The only problem is that a lot of Muslim Americans aren't always looked at for how they act, but how they dress since 9/11, and the confusion of being both Iranian and American is shown as kind of a liminal space between the two. The concepts of blood and bloodline are sites for both disease and purification for the vampire. The circulation of blood embodies the fear of contagion, comparing people who threaten a nation's identity to vermin or parasite. It was used to describe threatening migrants in Nazi propaganda, and it's also being used now, I might add. In Carmilla, disease connects the present to the past. The blood of this ancestral aristocracy is diseased, while the blood of the pure and modern middle class based in feudalism is healthy. It's not by coincidence that when she arrives, so does this plague that enters Styria, which is also the state my dad was born in Austria, if you want to know. So in order to immunize the state and the whole region, she has to be killed. And also the bloodline that she carries with her has to be finished. You can start to see that vampires function as the oppressor or the oppressed, and as time changes, so does the concept of evil, and so does the vampire that you get. Conventionally, we have seen color-coded colonialist imagery, and the colonized, dark-skinned are seen as savages who need to be fought or taught. They're another example of the other that strike fear into our fragile white hearts. These conservative Gothic still exist, but they can also be used to flip the script. European vampires and Navajo creation mythology is combined in Eye Killers. It's written by a Native American for the benefit of a Native American. The Eye Killer, this holy being that is both good and evil, is combined with the classic vampire in this completely binary creature. Native American and European and good and bad. In Native American myth before this, vampires, at least as we know them, didn't exist. And re-mythologized versions only existed since Eye Killers in the 90s. I don't mean that we shouldn't be giving credit for making a vampire, like who really cares, but just that people assumed that they were vampires when they really weren't. They were completely different creatures. Recently, or more recently, vampires have been used to show the victimization of people, or like the false monstrosity, and have really aimed to humanize things that have been othered for a long time that didn't necessarily deserve it. Whatever vampire it is, I think we like watching it on a screen. We like reading it in a book. We don't necessarily want it showing up at our door. Like this. At your door. Not so much. I think that there's a shock value in it. There's a thrill. There's freedom that we don't normally have. But at the end of the day, we reassert our boundaries to these creatures. And we just have to make sure that they actually deserve it. Because I think a lot of marginalized people feel like this and feel like they're evil for some reason, even though they're not, murdering people. That kind of sucks. You shouldn't have to exist in the shadows just to be yourself. So, food for thought, I think we all know. Hopefully we all know. Anyways, I hope you enjoyed the video. I hope it wasn't too draining. And I will link my sources down below if you want to read them. Otherwise, I will see you next time. Bye, guys. It's a raining man. Hallelujah, it's a raining man.